Welcome to GenXAdulting. Today we have Jasmin with us. And in addition to sharing her story, she's also going to share with us her outlook on how she views aging for women and how she's redefining that and sharing that with other women she knows. But before we get into that, we always ask our guests, what year were you born?
1966.
1966. So you are Gen X.
I'm Gen X.
You are Gen
Yes.
X.
Yep.
You just made it in.
I just
'Cause-
made it
yeah.
in. I did.
What's the cutoff?
64.
Oh, is it
Okay.
64?
64, yeah. And where were you born?
I was born in Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, cool. We've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool town.
Yeah, I only lived there for 6 months out of my life.
Okay, so you don't remember.
Yeah, no, my dad was in the military. So
Okay.
he was stationed there.
Okay.
And I've never been back.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So you moved a lot then, I assume.
Yes, yeah.
So where did you go after Madison?
I think we ended up going to Germany
Wow.
and then the Netherlands and then Washington State,
Okay.
Arizona, Virginia, and we lived in the Netherlands and Germany for a huge chunk of my life. Like I moved back to the United States when I was 17, a senior in high school.
So
Wow.
you spent most of all your formative years
And
overseas.
Mhm.
That's so interesting.
my mom's Dutch, and so that's why my
Okay.
dad always requested getting stationed in Germany, or he would go away to like remote duty for a year, like to Alaska and Thailand. So we would go live with my grandparents, and we would go to international schools.
Okay.
And
Wow.
yeah, so probably from I think 7th grade to 11th grade, I lived in Europe.
Oh, wow.
That's
So,
cool.
which branch was he?
He was in the Air Force.
And was he a pilot?
No, he was what? Honestly, we don't really know what my dad did, because he was like kind of top secret. Like
Okay.
like when we lived in Arizona, my mom said he would go to work at night, and he would go to that area.
Area 51.
Yes,
No way.
yes, and he would go with blindfolds. But what he would say he does tactical and radar. That's all
Okay.
we really knew what he did. But no, he was not a pilot.
So he went to Area 51 and would have to wear a blindfold.
Mm-hmm.
And he obviously could never tell you guys anything.
yeah, never.
Or your mom probably.
No.
That is
And my mom just told
fascinating.
us that recently, like probably like 5 years ago, just
Gosh.
out of the blue. So
Where did they meet?
it's so funny. My mom and dad met in a bar in Belgium,
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Okay.
and
Cool.
I've been to that bar actually.
That is so
It's
cool.
called the Queen's Club in Belgium, and my dad was a GI, and my mom was like a young local girl,
Right.
and they danced, whatever. They dated for like 3 months,
Okay.
back then.
Yeah.
And then they got married, and he was deploying, coming back to the U.S. So
Okay.
that's when they went to Madison, Wisconsin.
So then she could come over because they got married, right?
Right.
So, so you grew up overseas. So you would have come back here right at the end of high school.
My senior year of high school, I moved back.
How was that
It was
transition?
horrible.
Where did you go?
Niceville, Florida.
Oh, okay.
So I lived in Europe, and it was like punk and Pat Benatar and very trendy. And then I
Right.
moved to Niceville, Florida, where people wore T-shirts that said, "I lost my husband to hunting season."
Where is Niceville?
It's up in the Panhandle. It's 2 hours west of Tallahassee, as a matter of
Wow.
fact. Yeah, it's in between, and actually,
It's almost Alabama.
it's they call it Lower Alabama.
Yeah. Okay.
But the largest Air Force base in the world is Eglin Air Force Base, and it's at Niceville, Florida.
I never knew that.
Never knew that.
So you went from this cosmopolitan, diverse life to Niceville,
Yeah.
Florida. So that alone would have been a complete and utter culture shock. And then you're starting high school,
My senior year.
which I assume it was a small high school.
I don't really remember, but it was a combination of military kids and local kids. So military kids are just used to assimilating. You're used to
Right.
being the new kid, and I mean, that's why I can go anywhere and you can drop me in a room, but it was a big culture shock, and it was hard like my senior year because you are popular in your school, you
Mhm.
place I was a cheerleader and all this, and then now you're like the newbie with a Pat Benatar haircut.
Right,
That's
right,
too
right,
funny.
right. And so you were super cool, but maybe not everyone there totally realized that
Yeah,
yet. So it
yeah.
hadn't. So would you say for kids whose parents are in the military that moving that often is a benefit in your later years as you become an adult, or do kids typically yearn for that stability of being in one place because they move so much?
I mean, I personally yearn for being in being in one place because I moved around so much. Although I had a great childhood and I really adapted well. I mean, next thing you know, I was wearing flannel shirts. I mean, I
Right.
will adapt to any environment. But like my brother and my sister, they had a really hard time. They're both introverts, and academically, my sister struggled because even though we were in the military, has a school system called the DODS school
Hmm.
system, which is the Department of Defense.
Hmm.
And when we have these military bases, they have, their teachers and such, and it's a whole program. But they have the exact same upbringing that I had, and they're very, very different. And they didn't have the best experiences like I do. And they still live in the same town. They're very introverted. They,
Are they younger than you?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So how old would they have been when they?
So my sister's 18 months younger than I am, and
Okay.
my brother's 3 years younger than I am.
So you and your sister both started high school, and then he would have been in middle school when that
Yeah,
happened.
yeah,
So they have. They are they still there?
yeah,
Oh, so
They're in
they
Niceville.
settled.
yeah.
Wow.
So they settled.
So yeah, they settled. My brother actually joined the Navy and then got his education through the GI Bill, and now he is a software engineer. He works for a private company that has a military contract,
Okay.
Cool.
and then my sister works on the base in childcare development.
It sounds like for them though, it's perfect. Like they, like you said, they're introverts and they're in one spot and they're comfortable with that. So it
Right.
kind of worked out for them.
Like they needed that.
Yeah.
Where I picked up and moved because I was like, I'm not living in this small town, and I moved to Miami.
Why
And
did you choose Miami?
so I had a really good friend who was from Miami, and I went to visit her,
Hmm.
and I was like, this is where I
Yeah.
want to be. And I loaded up my Honda Civic, and
What year would that have been?
that was 89 or 90.
Okay.
And
That was the Miami Vice years.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I didn't get exposed to any of that, but listen, everybody you knew was a drug dealer. I
Right.
mean, honestly, like
Yeah.
it didn't phase anybody if you knew everybody was affiliated.
So it wasn't a cliche.
No,
It wasn't mainly Coke, or was it all
no, it's
drugs?
actually like I dated this guy who was like a drug smuggler, and it
Yeah.
was marijuana.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
Wow.
it's funny you say that because one of Nathan's best friends in high school, his dad used to be a drug smuggler. Remember that? I don't remember the name, but he was a pilot and he was bringing in weed from like South America.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, he actually spent time, he got caught. Yeah.
yeah. I have a friend who he went to UF. His older brother got caught,
Wow.
and back then they were really. I don't know if they still are now, but back then they were really, really harsh on the.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was very common for anyone in Miami to be dealing drugs, smuggling drugs. That was just very normal.
It was very normal.
That's how
That
the
is.
city was built.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so how did you get settled there? Did you know what you want? Well, did you go to school down there
No,
or?
so it's interesting. Like when I was answering your questionnaire about the things. So no, I didn't go to school down there. I did not graduate from college,
Okay.
and I just had to like come clean and tell my kids that.
Hmm.
It's been my like shameful secret for a really long time. Even though I climbed the corporate ladder and I
Yeah.
was super successful, um, I had to like tell my kids that. So the story is no, I dropped out of college. I moved to Miami and I started working. And when I was in college, I worked 3 jobs.
Where did you go to college?
I went to a community college
Up
because
in
up
Niceville?
in Niceville,
Okay.
and then I was transferring into UWF.
Okay.
And I was working 3 jobs to go to school. And then I went to visit my friend in Miami, and I was like, I'm blowing this taco stand.
Yeah.
And it's my biggest regret, but
But
I
you
don't
did
know.
fine.
I did, yes. I'm like, I don't know if I would have worked as hard as I did in proving myself had I graduated college, but it's still my biggest regret. But so I moved down there, I dropped out, and I lived with my friend
Mm-hmm.
and got a job and got, 2 or 3 jobs and just lived that Miami lifestyle. And then I met a guy
Yeah.
and we moved to North Carolina. I mean, I had a very
Oh.
colorful
So
life.
so you pack up, you drop out of college, you pack up, you're like, I'm going to Miami. I'm
Hmm.
gonna just have that adventure. You live with your friend. When you worked down in Miami, was it related at all to what you ended up doing, or was it just you were just taking
No.
jobs? Just
So I worked for a German airline because I speak German,
oh,
and
okay,
yeah, and that lasted like 3 months, and then I got a job. I just got a lot of administrative jobs,
okay.
and then I moved to North Carolina
And why did you move to North Carolina?
because the guy that I was dating got arrested for dealing drugs.
So this is the
That's
guy.
awesome.
This is the guy.
And so
Okay,
he wanted a fresh start when he had his like seed money,
okay.
and we moved to North Carolina. And he actually started his own business there. It was like he took video depositions, like he worked in the legal field.
So he could get arrested and still get a job and everything.
Yes, I mean, I don't really like,
Sure.
he didn't go to jail. Like he got
Okay.
off,
He
but
got off.
yeah.
Okay, okay.
Um,
So
and
what
what,
did you do in North Carolina?
so I landed the job of my lifetime. Went to work for this broadband technology company as a temp in the HR department.
Okay.
And for a woman who was like, every one of my bosses in my whole life have been predominantly women who've climbed the corporate ladder. But I worked for her for 3 months, and had to interview for the job. I did not know how to use a computer, but we had Macs back then that you could zip up and take home because it was
Hmm.
like the screen was at the top, and then and so I taught myself how to use the computer.
Mhm.
Back then,
Would this have been like the early 90s?
this was, yeah, probably like 1992,
Like
93.
the
Okay.
old word processor,
Yes.
not like a computer, but you would type and then it would print to it or something.
No, like it had a little disc because it was a Mac, and it was like
Okay.
it was like the bottom part was like you put a disc in, and the
Oh,
top part
the
was the
Apple
screen.
II.
Okay, is that what it was?
Yeah, yeah,
But you could put it in a little thing and portable thing and bring it home.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would go home. I don't even remember how I trained myself how to use it, but I did.
So you taught yourself.
Yes, and I had some computer experience back then. Was WordStar? I don't know if you remember
Yeah,
that, but
yeah.
and WordPerfect and all
Yep.
that. And I interviewed. She had me interview. I did not. I was not qualified, but I worked for her for 3 months.
Hmm.
I interviewed against qualified candidates and her former assistant, HR assistant, and I got the job. And it
Wow.
changed my life.
Yeah.
You know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because even back then, I know now everyone requires a college degree. Just to
Yeah.
even work at Macy's, it feels like you need a
Yeah.
college degree. Back then, was it as predominant as
Well,
a requirement?
Well, when I went to work for that company, when she hired me, one of the stipulation was they had tuition reimbursement,
Hmm.
and so I had to commit to her personally, like that I would do it, and I was going to go back to school. But then after working there, I don't know, maybe 2 years, I moved back to Miami,
Oh, okay, okay.
and um,
Did we leave the guy behind in North
no, we went
Carolina?
back with him, and he and I were together for quite a while, but I then went to work for an HR consulting firm. And it was a firm, so this is back in the day when there was like Ryder and all these big companies were merging with other
Mhm.
companies and downsizing. And so I got this big project to work down at Burger King headquarters and manage their
Okay.
whole outplacement center.
Okay. Very
So I
cool.
would train people how to interview, I would help them write resumes. A lot of times I had imposter syndrome, because I'm like, how did I get here? Because I
Hmm.
don't have a formal education. You have to tell people, even though back then there's no way for them to look it up, you have to produce, a document like
Mhm.
so I really don't know how. And sometimes I would feel like an imposter because I'm like, how did I get this job? So after that, I always had a job when I was recruited to all the other jobs
Hmm.
that I did. And so,
So just to go back real quick, when you were in North Carolina, was your motivation? Were you looking for another job down in Miami? Were you wanting to get back to Miami? What was the motivation to make? Was it the job offer?
no, because I didn't move back for a job offer. I think what happened, it was after Hurricane Andrew,
Mm.
and the guy, his family, he came down to help, and his whole family was in Miami. And so then
Mm.
Okay.
he stayed, and then I didn't really have anybody up in North Carolina. So then I went back
Okay.
down.
Okay.
And then, I had to start over, like, and find a job. And
It's amazing that you went down there and you didn't go from one job to another.
right.
And you still landed with
I
in
know.
such a great
And
place.
that's why it's like sometimes when I talk about it now, like I like used to walk around with being so ashamed. Like only certain people in my company knew, only the people that hired me, and I would just never. I would never talk about college or
Hmm.
go down there because I didn't want to lie, but I didn't want to talk about it either because I was like ashamed. It wasn't even embarrassed. I was ashamed. Then like when I'm now like I'm just sitting here talking to you, or I talk to my kids, like I really accomplished a lot for somebody who,
Yeah.
yes, we were these kids. That was when college was like everybody went to college, and
Hmm.
my dad was so disappointed in me, and it was just a lot of whatever. But
Did he always want you to go to
oh
college?
yeah, like he was, but also he financially couldn't help me, and so
Right.
it was like a lot to work 3 jobs and go to
That's a
school,
ton. Yeah. Yeah.
It's exhausting.
and he was retiring from the military and going, so it was just like family stuff. But
But instead, look at now, you probably see it as you were this badass woman
yeah, but I
that,
didn't realize it. But
at the
yeah,
time, if you think about it, like what you accomplished without that college degree
right.
is amazing,
I'm
you
curious,
know?
just to go back, you said the job in North Carolina changed your life. How so? Like giving you that experience?
Because I didn't really have a direction and know what I was doing. I was a good
Yeah.
administrative assistant,
Yeah.
but I did HR for 20 plus years after that position. So this woman took a chance on me, and and by the way, that was like when HR first became HR, because
Yeah.
before it was personnel,
Mm,
and it really was not about employee relations and things like that. It was really about managing benefits. It wasn't what it is today, because
right.
now that
Yeah.
as we start living in a more litigious environment, whatever, like you needed to protect yourself. So I learned almost everything on the job, and had amazing mentors
Hmm.
who like took me under their wings, and most of them were women until like the very end of my career. Oops. But
That's amazing that you were also during that time surrounded by so many women.
mhm,
Because during the mid to late 70s and 80s is when women were really entering the workforce. But then you're talking about late 80s, early mid 90s, probably to have that many women around you so quickly when it was really recent that women were establishing
right.
themselves is amazing. It's really very, very cool.
Yeah,
Just
it is.
historical, really, in
It
that
is.
sense. Yeah.
I mean, listen, like I'm right now going to enter the workforce again. I haven't worked in 7 years, and so now it's even more competitive. I haven't
Mm.
worked for 7 years, and I don't have a college degree. So I'm currently taking this certification that it's like the CPA for HR.
Hmm.
And I videotaped it the other day because I'm doing during the classes. The guy says most companies, a lot of big major companies, are dropping college degree requirements.
Yep.
And the reason why is for a multitude of reasons, but the main thing is that most college students, recent college grads, are not qualified. So they
Mm.
have degrees. So big companies like Google, Microsoft, they have to put them through a whole training program anyway, number one. Number two, most organizations would not consider to moving someone within an organization to an exempt position, a salary position, if they didn't have a college degree. But now they're realizing that, a lot of people who come up who work and don't have an education are exemplary employees, and so they should
Yeah.
be given chances. So this was in my HR certification
That's
class,
so
and
cool.
I was like, oh my gosh, and so I want my kids to go to college because I didn't finish. But,
Hmm.
Right.
part of my story is that I didn't finish college. And,
And you were still able to find your way and still able to be very successful.
right. And that means, anybody can. Like,
Right.
you have to be given the opportunity. You have to believe in yourself. Like, I really wanted to show my dad, because he was very disappointed in me. And I was like, I'm getting out of this small town and I'm going to make it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Did
And,
he ever? Did he come around to?
I don't know. No, I remember one time I was interviewing for this big position. It was I've always been in a lot of startup organizations, And he said, you know what you should do is you should call them and you should tell them that you'll take $20,000 less because you don't have a college degree.
Whoa.
So
And
he
I,
just kept throwing it back in
yeah.
your face.
And I was
Yeah.
like, no, I won't. And a year later, because it was a pilot position for a company that just had gone public, I wrote him a letter and I said, not only did I get a bonus, I just doubled my salary.
Good
Yeah.
for you.
So, maybe him like doubting me and making me feel bad really just challenged me.
Right.
I realize now that I'm just saying that to you. So was he ever proud of me or did he ever express that? I don't know because he's a
Right.
military guy.
Yeah, I
Right,
suppose,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was probably part of your driving force.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You know. So
Yeah.
okay, so you're in Miami. You
Mhm.
get this job with Burger King.
So I was working for a consulting firm and the job they gave me was the job at Burger
Okay,
King. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so you're still in HR though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you're saying so the outplacement, so they were doing mergers and acquisitions, which led to layoffs.
Yes.
Is that, and you were helping people
Yeah,
land?
so like Burger King back then, unlike McDonald's, did not have franchises.
Mhm.
They were a corporation and all of the employees in all of the locations belonged to Burger King. So they owned the real estate, they whatever. So then I guess this is in the early mid 90s, that they had a huge facility that they built right after Hurricane Andrew and they decided to divest. Burger
Mhm.
King was getting hit, so they were selling off the the locations now as franchises, and this whole corporation, their corporate headquarters, most of the people were getting laid off. So you had someone who had worked for Burger King for 20 years in the mailroom who was making $65,000 a year, who doesn't have a lot of qualifications. So we set up a huge outplacement center there where we work with executives and the entry level people to help them get back, help them get ready to interview for jobs, help them with whatever like planning, resume writing, interview skills.
Mhm.
And I would conduct job fairs and have different companies come out,
Mhm.
you know, and it was hard because you're dealing with people at one of the worst times of their lives.
Yeah.
So you kind of get to be a little like beacon of hope for them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You mentioned the imposter syndrome. Where did that come from in that experience?
Because sometimes I just would stop and say, how do I know this?
Yeah.
Why are people looking at why am I taking charge and doing this? Like sometimes where did this come from? Because I didn't learn this in school.
Yeah.
So so that I would feel like, what if somebody finds out that I'm really a fraud?
Yeah.
Not realizing that it was innate and it was a gift.
Yes.
And that
yes, I guess.
you didn't need college for that. You had it already. And it was coming out of you at that time, but you still were doubting yourself just because of not having that degree.
Right.
Is what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it. And because sometimes I would say how am I leading these people
Yeah.
and telling them, here's what we have to say, here's how we're going to manage this. Like, how did I, get there? And sometimes, I would. And then when I left that job and I doubled my salary at the next job, I mean, I went all the way up to director level. I was flying over to all of our locations all over the world, being like the head of HR. And I'm like, I'm like, and I mean, it is. I had a huge thing of imposter syndrome and I was very insecure. And,
But I'm sure no one would have known that.
no, I think while I was working, but once I stopped working and became a mom,
Mm-hmm.
those were the most insecure years in my life because
Mm.
my identity, as most of ours,
Yeah.
had,
Yeah. So how long so you said you were traveling the world. You made it up to director level. How long did you work before you got married and started having children?
Oh, I worked until I was 51. So even when I had kids,
Okay.
I worked for 10 years part-time.
Okay.
And then, I mean, you and I were really close then. I was struggling with my older son a lot. And so I made the company I was working for, because we were all coming out of that 2008,
Recession.
financial recession. And so as the company started to build back and grow, they really needed me full time.
Yeah.
And it was in Miami. So I was going down to Miami 3 days a week. And my son really needed me. So it's only been 8 years that I haven't worked, but that's when I decided to become a stay-at-home mom. Grayson was in 6th grade.
Okay. So when did you get married?
I got married in 2006.
Oh, okay. So how old would you have been when you got married then?
I was 40.
So you were so you really dedicated like the first 20, let's say call it 20 years, like when you, or 22 years, you were 18, tried college, packed it up,
On my career.
and then the rest was building that career, which you were obviously very successful at. And would you say that focusing on that, did it, was getting married a little bit later a result of focusing on that, or was it just more timing on just not meeting the right person yet?
Oh, I think that I hadn't met the right person yet, but I was really, and I really never wanted kids. I
Okay.
did not want a white picket fence. I did not want to be like my mom. I mean, kind of like, and I was like, I'm never going to be dependent on a man, that I'm going to just, this is whatever. But then when I want to say I was like 35. Wasn't my husband, but I was in a relationship, and I got pregnant, had a miscarriage.
Mm.
And I mean, it was a blessing in disguise, but it's kind of like when you can't have something, you suddenly want it. And it just changed my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started dating more guys that were more husband material
Mm-hmm.
instead of party material.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met,
Not drug smugglers.
right.
Yeah, right.
And then I met Alex, and I met him at 37. I was
Okay.
37. He was 35. And then we dated until I was 40.
Okay.
And then we got married, and Grayson was born the same year.
Okay. So
Cool.
you would have had Grayson when you were like 41 or 40?
I had him. So Alex and I got engaged on September 30th, 2005, and Grayson was born September 30th, 2006.
Oh, that's
Wow.
so cool.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
so cool.
So we had this big wedding planned, and then I got pregnant, which we were trying.
Right.
And I said, I cannot walk down the aisle with my belly. I don't want to do that to my dad. Little did I know that I wasn't going to be showing, but
Mhm.
I was like, I just can't do that to my dad. So then we had we just had a wedding on the beach, and then we had to put our money at the Addison, actually, and we had a big reception.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Like 4 months later.
Okay.
So
oh, that's lovely.
it's a funny little story, but yeah. So I had him when I was 40, and then I had Gavin when I was 43.
Okay. So what are would you say the pros, for young women, especially Gen Z? I think that Gen Z young women are, their work ethic, I think, is strong. I think they're very independent. I think their outlook towards marriage is shifted, at least for a lot of where we came from, Gen
Mhm.
X, and maybe even from millennials. What would you say to Gen Z women as far as the outlook of career, marriage, children? Um, what would be the pros of focusing on your career first before taking that commitment?
I mean, from my perspective, the pros are like, I have done it all. So by the time, I see a lot of stories, and a lot of my friends who got married right out of college,
Mhm.
you don't really know who you are. Like, I have traveled, I have dated, I have partied, I have climbed the corporate ladder, and this is like my decision. So when I finally had kids, that was like the icing on the cake for me.
Mhm.
And I had already accomplished everything, so I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I worked because I needed to stimulate my brain, but it wasn't because, and it was still rewarding. But the minute that I needed to shift gears and be a stay-at-home mom, I put 110% into that. And I never felt like, oh, I wish I could have done this, or wish I could have done that. I think, though, I was one of the lucky ones because I got pregnant without any help at 40. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I tell my kids, like, you're miracle babies, because there are a lot of women who can't get pregnant for whatever, like a lot of different reasons.
Right.
And so you do run that risk. I think that's the biggest con for women.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think if that was not an issue, I would tell every woman, I feel like having kids later, choosing a partner later, when you kind of know who you are, you choose them for different reasons. Like, I dated all these bad boys, but when it was time to get married and have kids,
Right.
this is who I would choose.
Mhm.
And he chose me for those reasons as well, because by the time I met him, I had already settled down.
Right.
I had already realized that, and like I was successful in my career, and I just stopped like slowing down and, my
Mhm.
partying, and just was ready to get serious. So I just think there's more, and from my opinion, more pros
Mhm.
and then cons, except unfortunately,
The
the
biological clock.
Yeah,
biological
yeah.
clock.
No, I think that I think it's the one thing, unfortunately, that young women do need to think about, and not that age is the sole factor of what may make it challenging to get pregnant, because women of all ages struggle with that.
Yes, yes.
But with the older you get, the chances increase that you may have challenges. So, it is frustrating, right, as a woman, that we have that one thing
Right.
that's kind of always looming over us if you want children. And
Well, and here's the thing. You may not know you want children, because I never wanted children.
right,
So until, something happened to me and it made me reevaluate that. But I will say that right now women can freeze their eggs. And
true.
that's so
Mm.
like that's an option. And I think that if I were a young woman, I would also freeze my eggs. And even now, like, because the other thing with being an older pregnancy, which they technically refer to as a geriatric
Yeah,
pregnancy, anything over 35,
which is crazy.
I know. But the thing is not only are is it sometimes more challenging to get pregnant, but you also open yourself up to a lot of different issues,
Right.
medical issues. So with the technology they have now, I think the issue is just freeze your eggs at like 25, 30,
Yeah.
and just that way you have them and they're healthy eggs.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for young women. Is it expensive? Do you know?
I have no idea, probably
Yeah.
because everything,
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
but it feels like, it's kind of like one of those things that's been around for a while now. So
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
as things are and they're not as new
Mhm.
technology wise or whatever, maybe it's not, but
Maybe
so
in the future that'll just be something normal that's covered by insurance, and
yeah,
it should be. As with most things with women, so many things that should be covered by insurance aren't, that we need, or should be annual checkups that aren't.
yeah,
But so, we can only hope, but wouldn't it be amazing if women were just offered to freeze their eggs
right,
in their mid 20s while they're discovering their life? It would be
yes.
such a wonderful opportunity.
I mean, it's so interesting because like what just popped into my head is sperm banks.
Mm,
Okay, so you have couples and women who are trying to get pregnant, and
yeah.
so they have sperm banks. Like, and the person who pays for that is the person that's buying the egg, right?
Right.
Buying the sperm, excuse
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So like, there's got to be a reverse,
Interesting.
Yeah.
thing
Yeah.
for women,
Yeah. I agree, but there isn't.
but there isn't. I know. Maybe
Which
we should
doesn't
start a
surprise. I know.
business.
There you go, Jasmine. That's our next business. Okay, so you were this incredibly successful woman. You got married. You had your children. How was it balancing having this new family in your life after you'd been working for so many years?
It
How
was
was that
it
adjustment?
was really difficult. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I thought I was going to be Martha Stewart, like the idea that I didn't have to work, because my husband and I moved to Tampa because he was building this whole community out there. He's a home builder, custom home builder developer.
Okay, so is that what he's always done?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And the whole financial market, real estate market, everything crashed in 2008.
Yeah.
So we were there.
Yes.
I just had a baby, and we had to come back. So at the time, I was like, oh, I'm going to be a stay at home mom. I'm going to be Martha Stewart. But uh, after Grayson was 18 months old, I had to go back to work.
Right.
But it wasn't full time. It was just that I was. That's the thing about being older. You're set in your ways. You're used to having your own set of accomplishments, and so I couldn't be a stay-at-home mom full time, and I went back
Right.
to work. And fortunately my mother-in-law and my father-in-law were there to help,
Oh, that's
Yeah, cool.
wonderful.
so they would watch him 3 days a week. And well, when he was 18 months, he was able to go to Grace preschool.
Oh, yes.
Remember the mom's morning?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
that's what I did, and then I worked part-time for 10 years.
Well, so it's wonderful that it was part-time,
Hmm.
right? So you kind of got the best of both worlds.
Exactly. That's and I think that is the golden, you know, equation, is
Mhm.
having the best of both worlds. You get a break from your kids,
Mhm.
because it is a lot. especially when you're older and you have less patience, whatever. I don't know what it's like to be a younger mom, but then you come back and you're excited to see them and you do this and you have your
Yeah.
weekends, then you're excited to go to work. But, it was very balanced.
Yes, that's the word I was about to say. It was balanced.
Yes,
So,
yes.
and then you had touched on this a little bit, but what did make you decide to stop working completely?
So it's a combination of two things. For one, three, my company needed me to work full time.
Right.
They were going to hire me an assistant, but I was like, it's just going to create more work for me. My husband's business was taking off. So, like,
Hmm.
I would come home from Miami and call him and say, I'm stuck in traffic. You have to go pick the kids up. And he's like, listen, I can't be in a client meeting and you call me at five, and I said, I totally understand that, but sometimes you don't know what the traffic's going to be like in
Right.
Miami. And then the last but not least, the most important thing is my older son was struggling.
Hmm.
And I really needed to, he was struggling in school. He had behavior issues, and which really were, just things that I needed to be home and
Hmm.
support him and um, be there for him. I mean, you and I were friends during that, and I failed him in a lot of ways because I really didn't understand what he was going through. I was kind of raising him in a military style because that's how my parents raised me. Like, you just got to do it. What did it? And then something happened in school one day, and at that day, like, I took him out of at a meeting on Monday. Wednesday, I had him out of school, and by Friday, I had resigned from my job.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
was the best thing I ever did.
Yeah,
It's a big week.
Yeah,
I remember that.
yeah.
So, how was the adjustment to stay at home mom?
It was great. At
You
that point,
liked
it was
it?
great.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. You were
because
ready for it.
my kids were older.
Yeah.
So I had a hard time with the part that I couldn't control when they were little because,
Mhm.
you're working, you are used to being in control and being task oriented. And so, like, that was really difficult for
Yeah.
me and my personality. Once the kids got older, like, I just immersed myself in running things at school, being room mom.
Mhm. Mhm.
I did a big fundraiser at the last school we were at, and I did that while they were in school, and then I just worked out and
And it
yeah,
was fulfilling.
it was fulfilling.
And it's interesting because you've had all these different phases,
Hmm.
You had this life as a military brat, quote unquote, where you got to travel, you got to live overseas, and then you did the adventurous pack up and had to, something that I think I know our daughter would have loved to have been able to do
Yeah.
because you get to say you did that. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just like, it's so Stevie Nicks vibe,
yeah,
And then
Pat
you,
Benatar.
yeah, or
yeah.
Pat Benatar, sorry, and had the bad boy boyfriends and all that, lived the Miami life, and then did the corporate thing and had the successful career as a woman, which is accomplishment in itself, and then as a mother and a wife. So you really have had already at that point lived so many lives. So I'm sure by the time it was stay at home mom time, you were like, I'm okay
Yeah,
settling
yeah.
in. This is
I mean, it was
okay.
like, it was a perfect timing, like, before I wasn't ready, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So
yeah,
how old were you, would you say, when you did that? When
I
you
was
say,
51.
okay, so let me ask you this, because I know I've gone through my own experiences when I hit 50, 51. I want to talk menopause a little bit. So did you, for the women out there listening that are going through that or feel like they might be starting that, did you go through a perimenopause or menopause? Did you? Because
Yeah.
there's some women that are like, I didn't, everything was fine. And then women who are going through it are like, what are you talking about? I feel like I'm going crazy. What was your experience with that?
So after Gavin was born, my body, that was the first thing. Like, and I'm super vain, right? So my body, I did not lose my belly fat.
And you were how old?
I was 44.
Okay.
I wasn't sleeping at night, and
Mm-hmm.
I was moody, and I just did not feel like myself. I didn't bounce back as quickly or as well as I did after the first pregnancy. So I happened to be talking to a friend who said, you should get a hormone test. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, your hormones are probably out of balance. And
Mm-hmm.
so I found a doctor in Fort Lauderdale. It was a specialist. Now you can go to your OBGYN, but
Right.
back then, that was when Gavin was, so like 12 years ago.
And I feel like it's really just recently where anyone's even
Starting, yeah.
talking about menopause and giving it its due,
Yeah, it's
you
because of
know?
COVID. There's a doctor that I've been following, and people started doing this on TikTok. Honestly, during COVID, there's this Dr. Marie Claire
Okay, yeah. Is
that
she the pause life?
yes,
I love her.
and that's how she started like talking during COVID. She was,
Yes.
and so she kind of, from my perspective, put it on the map. But like,
Yeah.
I did not have any friends that were my age, number one, and nobody talked about it. So I found this doctor in this practice in Fort Lauderdale. Insurance did not cover it. It was extremely expensive. And basically, they did full panel and they did all the stuff, hormone tests. And they put me on testosterone. That was what I was low on. And I would go every 3 months on blood work. You had to
Yeah.
get blood work. And for like 3 or 4 years, all I took was testosterone.
So you were perimenopause then
Yes,
during that time?
it was perimenopause.
Did that make a difference for you? The testosterone?
100%. And I had to give myself the shot.
It was a shot.
It was a shot. And but it made a huge difference. It helped me with like brain fog. It
Mhm.
helped my body bounce back because it's like the male hormones. So,
Right, right, right.
and I didn't have as many mood swings, and I was having great workouts. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
And I was on the same dose for many, many, many years, like probably 7 years.
Did you have any of the side effects?
The only side effects I really had was like like hair,
Okay.
but I was like, I don't really care about
You're like,
that.
it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
And then as I got a little older, um, my cortisol levels started going off again, and they redid it. And then so I've added. So now like I'm on progesterone, and then I am just about 2 years ago, they added estrogen. So
Mhm.
over the past 12 years, it's
Mhm.
evolved, but the dosage, it had changed my life. I mean, I really never had
Hot flashes?
hot flashes. I had one or two in the beginning,
Mhm.
and then it never happened again.
Mhm.
And I think that whole hormone replacement therapy is why I'm able to still, stay motivated to work out. And I
Yeah.
think it helps your body stay healthy and youthful.
I agree 100%. I know that after I had Dylan at 39 and then turned 40. And I know perimenopause hit, I want to say by 42. And I had a lot of the same symptoms. All of a sudden, I was a runner. And all of a sudden, after 10 minutes, my body was just not letting me run. And I couldn't lose the weight like I did with my other two kids. And I just attributed, oh, I'm older, da da da. The brain fog, all of that. And I wish at the time I had known to go get my hormones checked
Mm-hmm.
because I could have started so much sooner. But I did start hormone replacement therapy just within this last year because I full blown hit menopause, I think. And it has been life changing. First of all, the progesterone helps you sleep.
Well, and listen, I did not sleep well when I was going through perimenopause. So I took Xanax every
Mm-hmm.
single night. I had a prescription, and just recently I lost someone very close to me to a drug overdose. And one of the things that he was addicted to and abusing was Xanax. So this was in May.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. So I went to my doctor and I was like, I don't want to, she's like, you're not addicted because you've been on the same dose for 5 years. Whatever. I go, I want to get off of it. What can I do? And she didn't really have a solution for me. So I was telling my OBGYN about it. And she's like, I'm going to give you 200 milligrams of progesterone. I was taking 100.
Yeah.
And she goes, and just wean off. And I mean, I've been using 200 milligrams of
Yep.
progesterone to sleep at night.
Yes.
And I've been killing my brain cells for 5 years taking Xanax.
But you didn't know.
I didn't know.
So I have both. I have a prescription for 200 that another OB gave me, and then my regular OB gave me 100. But and depending on what's going on in my life, I'll either take two of those, the 200, or if I'm really tired, I'm like, oh, I only need the 100. But I take something, either some form of progesterone. To any women listening out there, if you are perimenopause, menopause, and you can't sleep, get some progesterone. I'm telling you.
It is. And I'm postmenopause, by the way. So it is a game changer.
Yeah.
And you're not waking up groggy. It's healthy. I just take it regardless, because my thing really was falling asleep was hard. And if I woke up in the middle of the night, I couldn't go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And so I literally get 7 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
And I wake up,
Jeez.
No,
Really?
it's a game change. He knows because sometimes like I'll feel it starting, and I'm like I can't talk anymore. My progesterone is hitting.
I wonder if there's
So,
a male equivalent. I'd love to sleep for 7
yeah,
You
hours.
should find out
yeah,
because
Yeah.
I think that's a whole other subject about men's hormones
yeah,
because men don't really talk about this thing.
Yeah.
But my husband, I'm like, I don't know why you men don't talk about this because he's going through hormone stuff now
yeah.
too, and the functional medicine doctors are managing it now,
Yes,
so it's just now starting to be talked about. But the men go through this as well.
they do. They
Yeah,
do. I think their testosterone. I think your testosterone starts dropping. They don't like to talk about
See,
yeah,
it.
yeah.
this
See,
is ego bruising. We can't even go
They
there.
can't
that's
handle
the
it.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
can't
and listen,
handle it.
and I'm not trying to get across the line here or anything, but this is what I think is so interesting that men, my husband included, can't talk about like the testosterone or
Right.
whatever, but men all over the world are getting Viagra,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
whatever. So like,
Yep.
it's at what point, like when do they connect?
Connected. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, they just want the pill. Just
Yeah,
fix it. We
yeah,
don't want to talk about where women are like, no, I want to get to the root of this problem. I want to help myself. So I think this whole discussion about menopause stems a lot from Dr. Marie Claire. And you're right. I forgot during COVID, she was all over TikTok, social media, just talking about, hey, are you having these symptoms? This is what it is, and
yeah,
you're not crazy. And these are all the things that menopause affects in women. And the list, she put up like 25 things that,
yeah.
and I think it validated women.
Well, and also she was going through it herself as an
Yes.
OBGYN. So it really had a lot of validity to it.
Yeah.
And it really and now there's a lot of celebrities and actresses who
Yes.
have come out with products and have really kind of
Yeah.
started talking about
They
it
made it
openly.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the Gen X. The Gen X
Mm-hmm.
celebrity women
Mm-hmm.
are starting to go through menopause or perimenopause. Maybe the older millennials, women too, celebrities, and they're talking about it. And they're the first ones. It was always just this taboo subject that, women you just have to get through it. And
I mean, I never even knew it as a subject. I didn't know it was happening to me. And I had a friend whose mom, I was talking to her mom,
mhm,
and she said, this and this. And then, but she didn't say you should go get a saliva test or do a hormone test. She just said to me, I have some books for you.
mhm.
And then I was talking to a friend who was my age who recommended it. So that woman who was telling me about it, they just toughed through it, right? They don't even do saliva test anymore, by the way, for hormone testing. There's a whole they do blood work and I don't it's advanced a lot. And now I go to my OBGYN
Yeah.
for it, and now I pay $10 for the progesterone, $30 for the progesterone, and then I do compounding pharmacy for the creams. I
Yeah.
mean, I used to pay $1,200 every quarter to go
Wow.
visit, and then I'd have to buy all of the testosterone and give it
Mhm.
to myself and all of the other things. So it was really expensive, but
Yeah.
it was worth
Yeah.
it every dime because it just made you feel better.
Absolutely. And are you still taking
Hmm.
everything? Cuz I saw I think it was on TikTok,
Yeah.
a few doctors talking about how women should continue hormone replacement therapy into their 60s, into their 70s, because it helps with our organs. It helps with our bones. It helps as we age.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that yet. I remember them saying to me at some point, you have to stop because you won't need them. And I was like, well,
Mhm.
why wouldn't I need them?
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll ever stop unless somebody maybe because I'm afraid of what will happen when I start weaning off them. I will tell you, I'm going out of town for the weekend,
Mhm.
and I just don't bring my vitamins and all my stuff for a weekend. I
Mhm.
don't notice a difference if I don't take everything for 2 days.
Mhm.
And then I just bounce right back on it when I get, whatever. But if I go away for a week, I'll take it with me.
Right, right.
But no, I mean, unless somebody tells me I'm doing something damaging to my body, I don't know when I will stop.
Same. I mean, I can't imagine it would be a very long time because when I even notice I do the patch.
Hmm.
And if I've missed it, if I'm a little late on switching, I will feel a hot flash coming on. By
Oh,
like day
really?
two, I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't switch my patch. So it's that fast. But I think I'm in the middle of
Well,
it right
that's what I was
now.
going to say. You're in perimenopause. I'm
Yeah,
postmenopausal.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So what supplements do you take though daily?
So I take a lot of supplements. Well, so when I was going to the hormone doctor, there are two supplements that they gave me that are called pregnenolone
Mhm.
and 7 keto DHEA. Like you can buy these at Whole Foods.
Mhm.
They are supplements, but they are supplements that support your hormone system. I've
Okay.
been taking those for 12 years.
Wow.
So I take those, and then I take it's a testosterone bioestrogen testosterone cream, and then I do progesterone. And then my supplements that I take digestive enzymes,
Mhm.
probiotic, omegas, calcium, and D and K.
Mhm.
And then I don't take a multivitamin because I do a smoothie every morning, and a protein powder has a
Mhm.
lot of that stuff in there. And then in the evenings, I take zinc, a magnesium blend,
Mhm.
and the progesterone.
Okay. Yeah, I do the magnesium as well with
You
the
do that for
progesterone.
sleep?
Yeah, I do the magnesium, and I do the magnesium for just calming,
Yeah.
whatever. So I do a combination of all those because literally the minute my head hits the pillow, if I didn't, my mind is
Mhm.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
going. And I buy this brand. So when Grayson was, I give supplements to my kids that are support ADHD. I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Amen.
Mm-mm.
He has this huge brain institute. They opened one in Miami. So he has these supplements, and one of them is called Calm My Brain, and it's magnesium, ashwagandha
Mhm.
root. I'm going to mispronounce that.
Ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha, yeah.
Thank you.
Ashwagandha. Mhm.
And then it has something called L-theanine in it.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it is a combination of those, and they're
Okay.
all to help me sleep, and they all work.
So you take that,
Yeah.
that's your mix. Is it a
And
powder
it's a
or
capsule. And so
okay.
I take that, the zinc, and I take the progesterone.
And why do you take the zinc at
I
night?
knew you were going to ask me that. I take the zinc at night because it gets me nauseous
Okay.
on an empty stomach. And the reason why I take zinc is because they say it makes your Botox last longer.
Oh, that's a great segue.
Yeah.
So, you have an outlook on aging for women.
Yeah.
Would you like to share with us what that is? Explain what it is?
I mean, I feel like I'm going to age and fight my way through it.
Mhm.
And what does that mean? When like it means different things to different people. I use Botox, but
Mhm.
I don't freeze my face. Like,
Mhm.
I find a balance. I work out, I eat healthy, but I do use Botox, and I recently started putting lip filler in my lip. Not
Mhm.
like nobody would know,
Right.
but it's just because it's lost a lot of the volume. And
It
then
as I think that happens to all women, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it happens to men, and there's a whole science behind like why that happens because the facial muscles and everything are starting to relax. You're losing fat,
Right.
so you know. So I try to be as natural as possible, but I've been using Botox since I was 45.
Mhm.
And I started off where I just did it here, and
Mhm.
I did that for like 2 years, and
Mhm.
then the next 2 years I did this. So over the years, I increased it, and I increased how frequently I go, and I will probably do it
It's
till
like
I'm
it's
80.
like the hormones.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And I do like the micro needling. I haven't done
Mhm.
anything invasive. I will never go under anesthesia unless,
Right.
now that I'm a mom, I don't want to take that risk. But all of those things I do to try to stay youthful looking.
And as a result, feel youthful
Right.
looking.
And I'm
So,
very vain. Like I think I mentioned that earlier, like the whole thing. Like I feel like when you feel like you look good and everybody feels differently when
yeah.
everybody's I look good is different.
Yes.
As I don't wear a lot of makeup. Where when I
Mhm.
was younger I wore a lot of makeup. I mean, I had
Mhm.
all the styles or whatever. I'm very comfortable being in sweats and no makeup. But
Right.
I also know that I need a little like lift whatever because, just to help me feel youthful.
Yeah.
And that's not and there's a lot of women my age that are on social media. They're like, why is society forcing us to be youthful?
Mhm.
And I don't think anybody's forcing me. I choose that for
Mhm.
myself. And I think it's great that you want to, like, I dye my hair. And
Mhm.
there's a very popular woman on Instagram, and her whole thing is that she's younger than I am, but she went completely gray. And I think
Mhm.
that's amazing. It's just not for me.
Right.
And so I think that I think that it should go both ways. Like if you want to do a little Botox, you want to color your roots, it's great. If
Yes.
you don't, that's great too.
I think that what you're touching on also is about women supporting women.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's that internal misogyny that we do to each other, where
yeah.
we judge each other for. I almost sometimes I wonder, is this a Gen X thing? Because I do feel like, I don't know if this was your experience, but I feel like our generation was raised to compete with each other
Mm-hmm.
immediately.
100%.
As soon as you walked in a bar, you were in competition.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you didn't, if you saw a girl and she was skinnier, had a prettier dress, your first thought wasn't, oh, that's so cute. It was, okay, I have to compete with her now. Whereas my daughter Kaya, who their generation, although I mean, there's still that subtle competitiveness, but they'll look at a girl and be like, oh my God, look at her dress. It's so cute. Or
Yeah,
they'll be so supportive of each other. The girlhood is
it
strong,
is. I
you know?
watched your podcast with her and her
Hmm.
saying that, and it's kind of like if you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom,
Yeah.
that whole stigma. And at the end of the day, we're all doing our job. We're all doing it in different ways, but we also are the generation where we're trying to break the glass ceiling,
Yeah.
becoming competitive in the workforce. And I think that it is a Gen X thing. And when I go to the gym, I always compete with somebody. Like I
Right.
just do that. And my younger friends look like, I'm like, oh, did you see I went faster than her? I did better. So it is a competitive
I
thing,
think it's how we were raised,
And I,
I 100%, and society. I think the society we grew up in, the magazines, the commercials, the TV shows, there was no girlhood. It was
mm-mm,
all women, or you're competing with other women for a man, usually.
It's
right.
the
That
era
was,
of the supermodel.
yeah,
Or a
yeah.
job,
Or
because
a job.
that's
Or a
start
job.
women were like backstabbing women all the time. That's
Yes.
why it's really interesting that I always had women who
Mm-hmm.
mentored me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I've never had that experience, but I've heard so many stories of women saying that other women had it out for them, and I'm like, I honestly never had that experience.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I think that, and I think I find myself internally judging also, so I'm
Yeah.
guilty of it as well. Because like I'm here saying I just do it subtly, but who
Right.
cares? It's if
Yeah.
it's subtly or if you freeze your face or
Right.
you don't.
Right.
All of those are good answers. Those are all good choices.
I think it's subjective. You made a good point. You said how you feel good about yourself is different for each person. So
Hmm.
I don't do, I'm sure anyone looking at me knows, I don't do anything to my face. I'm 53. I have wrinkles, but I take my legs very seriously. I do have spider veins. I have varicose veins. And you can bet I'm at the dermatologist getting those things taken care of, because that is what bothers me.
Hmm.
So I think it's different for every woman. I'm not right now as concerned about my face. I'm fine with my face, right?
Yeah.
But my legs, because I was a runner, so that's where I identified a lot of my fitness. And
Hmm.
so to see my legs age is what distresses me. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very unique to each woman, and I think as women, we have got to start supporting each other in that, and not judging each other. But our generation, it's a
It
struggle.
is.
It's a real struggle for us.
I mean, it really is. And I was at lunch today with some girls, and we were talking about parenting
Mm,
thing, and they were asking advice, and myself and another mom had a different perspective. And at one point, I was like, "Why are we trying to convince each other that ours is the right way? You parent your way, and I'll parent my way,
yeah.
because there's no one size fits all." And like going back to the spider veins, I have them all over my legs, and they don't bother me.
Isn't that
And then
funny?
and then also like the neck, like a lot of
Yeah.
people, and like
Yeah.
I don't even look at my neck. I could
Yeah.
care less,
Yeah.
So it's
It's
true.
different. I dye my hair, and I
Yeah,
get my grays right. Mine show up right above my forehead. Like, it's as soon as there's no hiding them.
yeah,
And I have dark hair, just like you. But it's different for all women. And I think that and parenting and being a mother, like it gets very judgy and I don't know if that's changed with the generations. I don't know if millennial women are as judgy as Gen X women moms were with each other, and I don't know if the older Gen Z women moms are. I'm not sure if that's shifted. I don't
I have a
know.
lot of younger friends, and I sometimes like. Have you ever just been around a group of young moms with their little kids, and you listen to them? Because I have a lot of young moms that work out at my gym.
Mm,
And what I've noticed that I think is a little bit different, it is still the same level of competitiveness, but and also it's a Boca thing. They're all trying to outdo each other
Yeah.
with parties, with bar mitzvahs, with sweet 16s. This girl has, like, there was a mom, they had 7-year-old boys asking when they thought the kids should start to pick the one sport they were going to do.
Oh my goodness.
And doing the big, so I don't think we did that as much. I
No.
mean, we were a little more organic, but this is like,
Are you kidding? I don't know about you, but my birthday party was a cake, some balloons, and my friends came to my house.
oh, when I was growing up,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
so when we were moms, we had the bigger birthday parties. Like I remember that was new. That wasn't like our Gen X birthday parties.
right.
But I didn't feel we competed with each other with the
No, like it was just like
parties.
the norm. And I think also we have boys, so it's a
Yeah,
little less
Mhm.
competitive. So like everybody just did the Sky Zone party. Everybody
yeah,
just did the Monkey Joe's, or
yeah.
whatever it
I forgot
was.
about Monkey Joe's.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even with Kaya, we would do the big parties, but I never felt I was trying to outdo the other mom's party. But I guess maybe with the younger
I mean, that's
moms.
what I'm
Yeah,
noticing. And like even when I was still at St. Paul, the new moms that came in, so there were a lot of younger families who had money,
yeah,
and so they would try to outdo each other donation wise, and things like
yeah,
that to the school, which we all were just like, us older moms were
yeah,
like, wow, like even the families that did and could just didn't do that. But
yeah.
it's like a, so I think it's like a different level of competition. But
Mhm.
It's
they also
interesting.
live in a world of Instagram. Like we didn't have that. We had Pinterest. We started, so
Yeah.
you start seeing all these baby showers, like excuse me, the reveal, like
Yeah, the
baby
gender
reveals.
reveals.
Yes. So those are
Yeah.
things that we didn't have, but like they're getting all of this stuff from social media,
You
and then
Yeah.
yeah. You
It's
just
made for social media.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
you just nailed it. So the millennials are the MySpace and then Instagram, Facebook generation. So when it comes to having their families, that FOMO or that competition online on social media exists with them, and that's probably what's driving a lot of competing with each other on sports, parties,
yep,
family competition stuff. But with Gen X, we were when we were parenting, typically we weren't comparing our lives on social media.
exactly, yeah,
So it was so I just don't think that competitiveness, even though Gen X women tend to compete with other Gen X women. I guess when it came to raising our families, that I don't know, that is it motivation wasn't really there. Where a lot of what I think the millennials have is online. So it's really that image, that persona of your family that you need to put out there.
right. And I think our kids, Facebook started becoming popular when we had kids, but
Yeah,
the stuff that we put out was kind of raw. It
Mhm.
wasn't like put together for Instagram, or this
yeah,
and that. So even though we shared, it was just like you were sharing your family photos,
yeah.
not this fabricated, photo ops. And listen, I'm guilty of it too. I did this whole martini and caviar and chip night because I saw it on social
Yeah,
media.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was like, oh, I want to do that.
Yes, but
So
you're not competing.
no,
It's a
no.
little different.
Yeah, that's
You're
true.
sharing something. I think for us it was more I guess wholesome, and it wasn't performative.
Right,
It,
exactly.
it
That's
was it was
that's true.
organic. It
Yeah.
was organic. So the pressure, could you imagine being a mom and then you already have so much on your plate and then also having that pressure of, okay, now we need to, and it all needs to look this way for our Instagram.
Right.
you know,
Right.
I
I
can't
mean, I don't even go on
imagine.
Facebook anymore because I just got like to the point that I would look at other people's lives and say, we need to go on more vacations. We
Yes.
need to do this. And what I liked about Instagram, it's changed a lot but it was like random inspirational stuff that you would share
Yes.
with people. And,
Yeah.
and, and I really, it was like a form of expression, and you didn't really care how many followers you had.
Yes.
That's how it started. That's how I remember it starting.
Yep, exactly. And I'm the same. I'll check in on Facebook once in a while, and then I'm like,
Same
I
here.
peek
Same.
in, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to, because same. I'll see all these like perfect lives, that I'm thinking, no, this doesn't make me feel good. Like if I
Right.
don't feel good looking at this, then I don't. And that's where TikTok comes in. Is
Exactly.
TikTok's a happy place,
It
and
is.
it's authentic. It's authentic.
It is. I love it. I literally will. I don't know what I'm doing with my life when it's gone. I
I
mean,
don't
it
think it's
really.
gone. I
You
don't think
sound
it's
like
going.
Nicole.
I know, but I don't think it's going. I think we're going to be fine. I think there'll be a little blip, but I think we're going to be fine. I think it's become a huge. I think TikTok has become um, a huge help for mental health for a lot of people, especially for Gen Zs.
Hmm.
They have that support because they're out there in their 20s figuring out themselves, figuring out their careers, figuring out where they're going to live. And it can be very lonely. And
Yeah.
especially, they are the social media generation. So if you have Instagram where everything is perfect, everything is performative,
Yeah, that's a really good point.
you feel like you're failing no matter
Yeah.
what you try to do. And then I think when TikTok showed up, it was like, no, you're normal. Like, look,
Right.
like my life's falling apart too. And
Right.
it's totally okay. And I think I have a feeling it really helped with people's mental health,
Yeah, I
you know?
agree. I
So
also was looking at. I love reading the comments in
Hmm.
TikTok. I mean, it's
they're,
just
they're so funny.
especially opposing view. That's how you learn. But today, when I was looking at the CEO of TikTok's his message, there were so many elderly people in the comment section saying how TikTok connects them to the world. So when you
Wow.
think about the younger generation, because this all really, really blew up during COVID when
Yep.
people were disconnected from one another. And it started off with a lot of, lip syncing and
Hmm.
things like that. And then it just evolved into a lot of different things. But today, when I was reading the comments, it's elderly people
Interesting.
connecting with
Wow.
elderly. So you should go look, Google.
I
I mean,
will.
go on TikTok and do his announcement. He made like a
Yeah,
speech, and then look at the comments, and it was surprisingly
Interesting.
it was elderly people.
I will because I saw his video. I just didn't read the comments. TikTok comments are top tier.
Oh yeah,
There are some witty people out
I
there.
know.
I'll be crying laughing and he's like, "What are you laughing at?" I'm like, "The comments."
Well, you know what I've noticed? There seem to be at a higher intellectual level than say Facebook,
Oh, for
and there
sure.
seems
Yeah.
to be more respect, more discourse that's respectful, as opposed to Facebook gets kind of nasty at times.
I mean, I don't even look at that anymore, but I remember that. And one of the things, and this is going to be a very controversial thing that I say, but I have to say it, and I may have already mentioned it to you. When the unfortunate event happened where the CEO was killed,
Yeah,
Hmm.
that was
with
horrible.
United. Yeah,
But when I wanted to just read the comments. I mean, they were the most clever,
I know.
all the comments. And I just thought, it was interesting to see people's perspective, but just the way that they did it. And again, I'm not supporting the what happened at all, but it was just very interesting to me.
Yeah, yeah. The way that they worded, they're strongly worded feelings, but they did it in a very clever and witty way.
Right. Like
You know.
tying it into insurance terminology,
Right.
Hmm.
you
Yes.
know?
That
Yes.
was pretty. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what you're talking
No,
Yeah.
about.
it
Yeah.
was good. It was good. Well, hopefully TikTok stays around for all of us. So you were talking about that you're returning back to work and the steps you're taking towards that.
Yeah. I'm hoping to, yes.
So what was the motivation there?
So last year, in December, I had a midlife crisis, midlife awakening. I think that a lot of times you think you're in your 50s. I mean, I'm going to be 59 on Sunday, so literally
Oh, happy
60.
birthday.
Thank you.
Yes.
That you're like going to be retiring, and last year, Grayson's driving, Gavin's biking, Alex is working, and I was home putting up the Christmas tree by myself. Not this year, but the year before. And I just got so resentful to everyone in my family for moving on with their lives, um, and realized I needed a purpose. And the first thing I did was I turned to my husband, who's super busy and whatever, and he was not he didn't have the tools to be supportive. I always tell him that I'm like, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. Like he's not, and most men, sorry, I mean, he's not evolved. So
Right.
like he did not know what to do
Yeah.
with what I was bringing to him.
Yeah.
And because like to him and to outsiders, like I have this perfect life and this perfect home, and I was like, I don't have any purpose.
Right.
And so he's like, I want you to come run my company. I like you or whatever, you come run my company. And I kept saying no. I mean, for years I've said no. I was like, I just don't want to work for you. I don't think it's healthy. And then I started going to therapy and I started doing Reiki healing. I just started doing all this stuff because I wasn't feeling good. And I was like, why don't I feel good?
Mm-hmm.
I have no reason to not feel fulfilled or feel good. You know, it's great. I would cry because Grayson he hadn't even gone to college yet. And
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like because we were so connected because took time off to be with him and raise him. And now he was flying.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's where I wanted, but I was lonely. And I just went through this whole thing. And it took a huge strain on my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like at one point, I was like, I don't want to be married to you anymore. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not fulfilled. I want to, you know, you don't do this, we don't do that. And like, we told our kids we're getting divorced because he's like, I can't
Well,
make you happy. And I said, well, if that's your attitude, okay, you're right. You can't make me happy, but I'm not going to spend the rest of my life like this. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then I realized it was a knee jerk, whatever. But in the moment, I was like, that's it. Let's tell
Right.
it, whatever. And unfortunately, my children went and told their friends. So now people are texting me and, you know, whatever. It was a huge, so it was a really big, everything kind of blew up.
Yeah.
I did go work for my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And it did not go well. Not for, you know, he's the boss, not me. I'm not used to that. And also, it's his business, and I was coming in and telling him how he should run things because that's what I do. And it really just, even though I'm good at what I do and he's good at what he does, it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left about right around Thanksgiving.
Of
And,
this past year.
mhm. And then I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get because I don't have a college degree. I haven't worked in 7 years. So I'm going to take this certification. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And it was bad timing. So I decided to do that and I hired a career coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking the exam on February 15th. Why am I want to go back to work? I want to have a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's not about, I don't even want to be in charge of anything. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't even care if I take it. I actually do want to take like an entry level position so I can go to work and leave. And I'm like, if I like it, I will rise to the top.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's
mhm.
just the way, you know, but I don't necessarily, having not worked for 7 years, don't want to jump right back in
Right.
and be responsible, you know, because I do also like my flexibility.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Are you looking in the same in HR?
so
Looking
right
to
now I'm
say,
not actively looking because I'm just getting myself prepped. I want to, in what a luxury for me to say, I want to get Grayson off to college
mm-hmm.
and then I'm going to get a job because I don't want to take time off or be
Mhm.
distracted. And the career coach is like kind of helping, like, what do I want to do?
Yeah.
Everybody keeps saying you should start your own business. You should, but I don't want that much responsibility.
Right.
I want to go to work, do my job, get a paycheck, and go home because
Right.
it's really for a fulfillment. And I feel really fortunate that that's why I'm, you know, going out
Mm-hmm.
to work. So that's, you know, I did this little video on TikTok that was like, I thought at this age I would be like planning my retirement, but I'm not ready to wind down. I really don't feel 60. I don't feel tired. I don't feel at retirement age, like
Yeah.
that I don't want to work. And we met with our financial planner, and I was like, we're talking about Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I'm going to work until I'm 70
Yeah.
because if you don't, you turn to mush.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe
R-
I'll work part time.
Right. Right. I think Gen X has completely changed the idea of 60.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think 60 is like 40 to us,
Mm-hmm.
and I think so many Gen Xers plan on working like you, whether a lot of them I think have to, the way, everything's gone with the world.
Right.
But even if they didn't have to, they want to. But I think in general, we view getting older, we're pioneering that.
I think
We're
so. Yeah.
changing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just if you look at how we all live, we still live like,
I feel young, and we're getting
yeah,
older, but I still feel young.
yeah. I mean, I think
Yeah.
we have to make changes health wise.
Agreed. Yeah.
I think that's the big thing is we can't drink like we used
Right.
to, and we need to exercise, and we need to take our supplements and eat better. We have to
Yeah.
if we're going to head into this next phase and tackle it. But I just think we are completely pioneering quote unquote old age
Hmm.
for the younger
Well,
generations,
I have
you
to
know?
agree. I mean, I went back to my hometown for my 40th high school reunion. And actually, not my hometown, nice field, Florida, where I
Right.
graduated. And they are a very simple people, very humble. They don't. I mean, if you have a Coach handbag, you are really, they just don't care about
Hmm.
any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, all of my friends from high school, not one of them uses Botox or any of that stuff. But they're hiking, they're running, they're exercising, they're boating. They're very, very active.
Yeah.
And so, like, I look at them and I'm like, if I lived here, I would still do Botox because it's a personal thing.
Yeah.
But they all moved away and came back, and they're living this really healthy,
Interesting.
active lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
and they're all connected with each other again because it
Mm-hmm.
was such a small town. Everybody moved away, but now
Yeah.
they're all back,
Yeah.
and there's sailing and boating because it's on the water, and they're yeah, and like my mom at my age, I mean, they were sitting on the rock. I mean,
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
So she still lives there as well?
yes,
Oh, that's cool.
yes. So yeah, my dad passed away, but she lives in the house, but she sits on the couch and watches TV all day.
And I think with the boomer generation and probably with the silent generation, I think mentally in their heads, they thought, okay, so now I'm this age, so this is what I'll do. And now I sit and now I watch TV, or, they, in their minds, they thought once you hit a certain age that you're supposed to slow
Just shut it
down.
down and wait
Yeah.
till you die.
Yeah. Yeah. I observed that with my grandmother. My grandmother all of a sudden just sat and
Hmm.
waited.
Hmm.
And my mom lives with us, which keeps her active.
Yeah,
So she's lived with us now for 7 years, I think. 6 years. But
7 wonderful years.
yeah. But that keeps her active. But probably if she didn't live with us, honestly, because she did retire at 70 and she's 77.
oh
Um,
wow, I didn't realize she was
yeah,
77.
she turned 77 in October. I think she would definitely live a more sedentary life if she wasn't living with us, for
Oh,
sure.
I
And
bet,
she'd be
yeah,
the first to tell you she's grateful she's
Well,
here.
she did. Like when she wasn't living with us, she would chill. And
Yeah.
her most activity was when she had
Well,
the kids for the weekend.
well, she was still working because she moved
True,
in with
true.
us when she retired.
Yeah.
So I think she would just be chilling. Where here, she's, with Dylan was younger, so she helped. She still
yeah,
helps.
yeah,
She uh, ran an errand for me today. Like, so even something simple like that, as you get older, like it's good to go and do those things
yeah,
and be out. And she has like a mahjong group and all that. But even her generation, though, they kind of think, okay, well, I'm this age now, so this is what I'm going to do. But I don't think Gen X doesn't have an age that they see the finish line coming up. It's just
yeah.
redefine. We're always redefining, I
I,
think.
I think we are, and I think, like, if you think about our generation, us, I didn't really start eating healthy and taking care of myself until I had kids.
Yeah.
So I was 40, and I told my, I mean, I can still remember going to Taco Bell,
Yeah.
and I was an adult,
Yes.
I'll still go.
Yeah. Okay. So when I had kids, that's when I realized, because I was older, like I want to be healthy and live to see my kids grow old,
Mhm.
and I don't want to. And so I think that's the motive. But a lot of people our age are on the health bandwagon, eating well, eating
Yeah.
healthy, exercising, and not for necessarily to look good, but to feel good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like you said, our kids are eventually going to hopefully get married, have children, and we want to be active grandparents. We
Right.
want to be out there running along with them and doing things with them. And if we're going to do that, we have to acknowledge that we need to make some health changes. We're just not going to make it.
Right.
And so it's slowing down on the partying, but oh my gosh, we're the generation of baby oil
Yeah.
laying out in the sun and smoking cigarettes
Yeah.
and eating like crap. Like we've come to that wellness life midlife.
Oh, exactly. Exactly.
Whereas the millennials and the Gen Z's especially, that's all they really know.
That's their
They're
starting
very
point.
big into
Yeah.
wellness. Gen
Yep.
Z especially, but and I see it with the millennials. So and Gen X, we finally found it.
Yeah.
You know.
My kids were never allowed to have fast food or anything. And so now, what do you think they're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, maybe I should, but like it just went against everything, that I
Yeah.
believed in. So now I'm like, you guys, when you're out, because now I'm all about the GMOs and the
Yes.
pesticides. And so like now we're not doing gluten, and Alex is on this special diet now, but I was like, you're never going to get an unhealthy meal in this house again. I'm not buying snacks anymore. If you guys want it, you have to buy it outside the house,
Yeah.
because I realized that maybe there should have been a balance, but it would have gone against what I decided to do for my health. And
Yeah.
it was at 40. So it was
Yeah.
midlife.
Yeah.
And up until then, I ate and drank and did whatever I want.
Yeah.
Now I do it on a Friday or a Saturday.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, it's same. Like, we've reincorporated it in, but we had to make some big changes.
It's funny you say that on the Friday and Saturday, because that's the thing in the corporate world. It's like I stopped drinking during the week,
Yeah.
so I save it for Friday or Saturday. I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
wild.
If that gives you another reason to look out for the week, but then you don't have to worry about waking up,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
like being like having, because now that our kids are older,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning on the
No.
Yeah.
weekends. So sometimes like sleeping until 7 is really good for me, but I'll stay
Yeah.
in bed till 9 sometimes,
Yeah.
or I'll have a third drink knowing that I don't have to get up.
Yes.
But nothing really beyond that. I mean, nothing like our nights out,
No, we
No.
used to have some fun nights.
Yeah.
We'd be out till 2 in the morning easily.
Yeah.
When our girls' nights out were so much fun.
They were.
I could never do it now.
No.
Now I'm more like, can we meet at 5? Because
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably leave by 9.
So I'm my girlfriends are all younger than me,
Mhm.
right? I just met them all three. So my birthday's on Sunday, and my two friends just turned 50. All three of them just turned 50.
Okay.
So they're 10 years younger than me, 9 years younger than me. And so they're like, we want to do something for your birthday. It's your last year of your 50s. And I'm like, let's go to Miami.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, let's go to Palm Beach. And I'm like, oh my God. So we're going to Naples, and we got a reservation for dinner at 8. And my friend calls me the other day. Now, granted, remember, she's 9 years younger than me. Would you mind if we changed the reservation to 6? I can't eat that late.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're on vacation. Like, they didn't have reservations. I goes, but if you want to call and you can get a reservation somewhere earlier in the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just so crazy.
It's crazy how things change. Listen, if I eat too late, it affects my sleep. Like, I
Yeah.
prefer to eat earlier. And okay, when did it become where even if you only have 2 glasses of wine, you're just as hungover as if you had? Do you go through that?
Yeah. I can usually not drink wine anymore. Now I only know what I can drink. But
Right.
yeah,
Or anything. Like,
Yeah.
you would have 1 or 2 drinks. I used to be able to have 1 or 2 drinks and not even know I drank at all. But now I have 1 or 2 drinks and I am hungover.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Like,
are?
Oh yeah.
If I drink Tito's with anything, I could have 3 drinks and work out the next morning.
Seriously?
Yes.
That's pretty good.
But if I have a glass of wine, I'm done for the next day.
Red or white, either one?
I don't even drink red anymore, because the minute I take a sip of red, I have a headache.
Yeah.
So it's generally wine. But like today, I went to lunch and I had a glass of wine, just because I was like, it's too
Yeah.
early to have vodka. So we all had a glass of wine, and I had a headache
Yeah. Yeah. I don't react as well to wine, but alcohol in general, it's almost like I might as well have a few drinks, because even if I have 1,
Yeah.
I feel the same the next.
Oh, you
the-
do?
I do.
Yeah.
Don't you?
100%. Yeah.
I'm impressed that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
lucky you don't have that.
I'm the
Yeah.
same as you, though. If I have red wine, 1 glass, I'm completely just wrecked the next day.
Yeah. There's something in
The talents
Yeah.
or whatever
maybe,
it
Something.
is. Yeah. So where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? So you're going to be 59 on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that means you'd be 64.
Well, 64. So honestly, I see myself, being happily married, because we did work through that. We're not getting
Which
divorced.
is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wait, can I touch on that real
Yes.
quick? I think I don't think that's talked about enough. I think that when women hit 50-ish, their midlife, they've been married, they've
raised
worked,
their kids.
they've raised their kids. I think when we're raising our kids, our tolerance is much higher for things. I think we're in that nurturing state. We want to create a family. We want things to be perfect and wonderful for everyone. So we ignore certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I think our children are pretty much raised and we've been married for a while, I think that tolerance goes down. And that also may have to do with menopause too, where it might give us that might be a pro of menopause, is it gives us that permission to say, you know what? No, I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm tired of it. I've done it for so long, so many years, and it's time for me now. I'm going to reclaim some of my energy. I'm going to reclaim some of my time and make myself a priority. And I think a lot of times when women do that, the marriage gets affected because the husband or partner has been kind of used to her humming along. Things have
Hmm.
just been fine. And to men, I think they truly think, oh, everything is fine because if it wasn't, I would know. Not knowing women's tolerance is so high that we could be sick and no one would know.
Right.
Um, and I think there are divorces, a lot of divorces during this time because a lot of women say, I'm not going to put up with your shit anymore.
Yeah.
And there has to be an adjustment for the marriage to continue.
Right. I mean, right now they say that it's called gray divorce,
Right.
and it's women and men in their 50s and in mid 50s range, and a lot of it has to do with like because most couples have already raised their kids in empty nesters, right?
Right.
Like, but I think what you're saying is true. Like, you're also very distracted because you're busy raising your family that you don't even realize, and you don't even realize that all of a sudden there's
Yeah.
something that you need. So I could see that, and I think also sometimes you get to the other side and like, who are you? Because like in my marriage, for example, one of the things that was difficult for me was like by quitting my job and staying home. I used to say I just put myself back to the 1950s, meaning my husband is now working and
Hmm.
he's the breadwinner and I'm home and what's for dinner, and it's very traditional, which I planned my whole life not to be like that. I didn't
Right.
want to be like that.
Right.
And I lost my train of thought.
So you ended up in a situation that you had worked your whole life not to end up in. And then you ended
Yes,
up there
yes,
in that traditional role
yes,
because we all know that whether a woman works or is at home, most of the domestic
yes.
responsibilities fall on her.
Yeah, so even when I worked, I did
Yeah.
everything. But like, I think for me, when I started realizing this, to your point, like the men think that everything is going smoothly. And my husband just really did not know how to handle what I was saying.
Right.
And in everything he kept saying was, what, I'm not doing anything right. I'm not doing anything right. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to say that now that, the kids, so that I need more time. I need more companionship. Like, I go everywhere by myself because
Right.
you work all the time. Now, the flip side is that I have everything that I want. I can go and like, but I was like, I go, money can't buy you love. Like, you can have
Right.
security, you have this big, beautiful house, but where are the memories? Where's the home? And
Right.
he's like, well, somebody's got to pay for all this. And I'm like, but we didn't ask for all this, and it just goes back and
Hmm.
forth. And so finally, it's like a matter of the chicken or the egg, right?
Right.
And so,
And the balance
and the balance.
because it was fine because you were busy raising
Yes, yes,
kids. And so you guys had your roles.
yes.
And then the
The
kids
rule,
left
yeah,
and you're like, "Wait, I still want a relationship."
yeah.
And we kind of put it to the side without realizing it. It's almost like we need to get to know each other
What do
again.
you think the switch is there though? Because I'm hearing you talk about Alex, and I can relate to his side of it.
Hmm.
And you brought up the concept of he wasn't equipped to deal with some of the stuff you were bringing. I've been in that situation.
Yep.
She's brought me things, and it's like I thought I was doing okay, but
Hmm.
so I do think we're slower to evolve. I feel like I've gone through some evolutionary things, maybe with like maybe the menopause, or we're getting into different phases or whatever it is. But what do you think's happening for you guys that's flipping the switch, whether it's either an enlightenment on your part or your needs have evolved or something's happening, right? Where we were here, now all of a sudden we're here. Well, you're here, but we're still here.
I think that women finally make themselves the priority.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think that your family and your husband come first. Like, that's just the nurturing aspect of, and that you're busy taking care of everybody else.
Yeah.
That you are taking care of, like your home is this and that, but it's like the emotional. So nobody who's checking on me to make sure I'm okay. Who's checking on me to see if I have a gift under the tree. Who's checking, and by the way, part of it is my fault because I just took care of everything. And so now, yes, I'm starting to realize that I have more time.
Yeah.
My job is starting with, in terms of the parenting, is giving me more time. And now I'm like, well, wait a minute. What about me?
Yeah.
And and
So
then
true.
and so I don't think it's anybody's fault.
Yeah.
I think it's just the evolution of a family and marriage. But I think that the partner has to make an effort to try to understand. And I'm going to be honest with you, my husband did not, and he buried himself in work. And I mean, we went to mediation and I was like, I'm out. And I said, and I am going to have the next 20 years of my life are going to be joyous.
Mhm.
And I'm going to have a partner, or I'm going to be alone by myself instead of
Mhm.
lonely in a marriage.
Mhm.
And he was like, fine, fine. And then the very end, I mean, he has never, and then I went and looked at a townhome. I was getting ready to buy it. I was going to renovate it. And he finally had some sort of epiphany.
It's
And
this is real. It's happening type of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it started off with like, and he's not a man of big words, he's more of actions, but he was like, I really appreciate you coming to work for me. You did a great job. And then he'd say, I really appreciate. So he started just like saying things to me. And I was like, those are little things that really mean a lot. Like, just acknowledge,
Mm.
appreciate, ask me to go to lunch one day and follow through on it. Little things. And, I was like, of course I'm going to give him a chance because he's my husband. I love him. It's 20
Yes.
years. But basically I was saying, I will move on.
Right.
And I am not hesitant on that because now I know, like, I'm going back to school I'm like, I have a lot of life left in
A lot of
me.
potential still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So I think that's a thing. They've actually been coming out with studies that they're finding women are fine without men. That men benefit more from marriage
Yeah.
than women do, and that men get more out of marriage and become healthier, become happier, more settled, and women actually end up suffering more, and their health is more affected from marriage. And they're finding more and more women are willing to walk away from a 20, 30, 40-year marriage and are completely happy and fine living that way. So I think that it's like you were saying, you were either going to live on your own and be happy or maybe find a companion, but you knew no matter what, you'll be fine.
Right.
And it's that feeling of, look, I'm going to be fine.
And listen, when I say that, I'm not going to like the past year when we were going through it, I did a lot. I had like, it was hard.
Right. Yeah.
And it was really hard. And it was also very difficult to deal with what I perceived as rejection because he wasn't saying, what can I do? I'm sorry that you feel like he was just like, I don't know what your problem is. Like,
Right.
but I'm not doing anything wrong and I'm not changing. So, and I can't make you happy. And then I was like, one day I just looked at him and I was like, I'm never going to chase you again. I'm never going to be in this role with you ever again.
Right.
And I walked up and I mean, honestly, like we didn't talk for like, we lived in the same home. We did not talk for 3 months,
Wow.
except for interacting. We're not fighters. We don't
Right.
yell and
Mhm.
scream at each other. So we would just disengage because I was like, I'm taking my energy back.
Yes.
And, and I had to like choose myself. Like that's what I kind of felt like it was like, you're not choosing to meet me in the middle. So I really have to leave. Like I can't do this because I'm letting myself down. And I was going through this therapy where it's like, what would the little girl in me think? And I was like, this
Yes.
is, whatever. So like, I think that, so, but I think it's unfortunate that I had to take it as far as I did, but I think that it was the best thing that I did for myself to know that I will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I choose to be with you
Yes.
but I know I'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you. And I don't mean that in a whatever way, but like you have to do the work. You have to meet in the middle. You have to appreciate you're losing your whole family.
Do you,
Right.
do you think if you look back, were you ever at that point, say 10, 15 years ago, and the timing is right now, or do you think this is was a new thing?
No, I do think that there like were issues, mainly issues that were never resolved, not major issues, but what would happen is I'm just so dedicated to like I let a lot of things slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally when I'm like there would be times I just stopped bringing things up that bothered me because I would get, poo-pooed or whatever. But then now, like, okay, now there's nowhere to turn. Now I've got to, this is how I'm feeling. And I'm not criticizing you per se, but this is what I think is wrong. And this has been a common denominator.
Yeah.
But I would never have ever considered divorcing when my kids were young. Like, I would always put my family first.
Yeah.
And, but I have a lot of friends who have parents who were divorced that said that a lot of their parents, like the day they went to college, that's when their parents got divorced. And
Yeah.
they were like, we lived it. We knew they were unhappy. And so they're like, if you're unhappy, don't, because I was like, I'm going to wait for Grayson to graduate because
Right.
I don't want to ruin, I mean, this is very recent.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, don't do that. And so then I pushed forward and I was like, I went to mediation and I did whatever. And again, I wasn't angry. I wasn't mad. I was just done.
Yeah.
I was just like, I just don't want to live like this. He didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I didn't do anything wrong.
No, but I think you really nailed it. I think women look past so many things when you're in the thick of it raising kids. I think and you try, right? You have conversations like, could you bring me flowers once in a while? Could you still take me on a date once in a while?
Mm-hmm.
Could you be more romantic once in a while? But then life's going so hard that's not the hill you're going to die on at that moment, because your kids have so many things going on. As a couple, you're raising children, you have a life together. So you kind of just let those quote unquote little dreams or whatever, kind of die for a while. But then I think when the children get older and you actually have time to focus on yourself, and you said it right there, you reclaimed your energy. That's exactly how I felt as well. I would say around the age of 51, I felt I've given, I got married at 23. I had my first child at 26.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like my adulthood has been taking care of everybody. And I just thought, okay. And that kind of was with that mid awakening, as you call it, of, okay, I face more mortality. Life is finite. How do I want to spend the second half of my life? And I'm going to reclaim some of my energy. I'm going to put myself first for the first time ever, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
because my
Mm-hmm.
childhood was so
Yeah.
messed up.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, we had some conversations and some arguments, and it took a while to get my point across, because things had been humming along so nicely for almost 30 years. So I think he was like, wait, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
But then all those things I had let kind of die off. I was like, no, like, these are important to me. And like when you said the child in you, I always tell my kids when they're trying to make a big decision, I say, well, what would you in 10 years want to look back and see you did?
Mm-hmm.
So think of yourself 10 years from now, and you need to be happy with this decision now, that you're going to look back on it and be proud of yourself for whatever you decided. And I kind of thought that to myself. I'm like, okay, so 10 years from now, how I feel about what I'm doing right now, my decision making. And that really gave me that courage to go for it. And in a
Yeah.
way, it's like
Yeah.
you're sticking up for yourself for the
Yeah.
first time,
100%.
you know?
And I think like going back to like what you were saying, like they don't like it did catch him off guard. So, and I
Right.
think his defense mechanism was, I'm doing everything right, so I can't make you happy. It
Right.
was like, and he was the first one to say, why don't we just have an amicable divorce? And I was like, wow, that's your go-to. And then,
Mhm.
but also coming to the other side of it, now I can see his perspective,
Right.
and I, when I was telling him, I was like, these are the things that I appreciate about our life. And I was telling him, because I said, I don't want you to take everything negatively, but you also can't be so sensitive and like, because I would talk about something that happened 10 years ago because
Yeah.
it was still in there because he
Yes.
never let me, whatever. And I was like, so instead of arguing with me about it or he didn't argue. He would say, what are you talking about? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
this is how I feel.
Yeah.
So it's like a good cry. I need to get it out and then
Mhm.
I'm going to move on. But by you keep saying, what? I go, now you're pissing me off.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with you per se. I'm telling you how I feel. You can choose to do with this whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I'm no longer so what happened with the catalyst for me was like, I would get nothing because he was tired after work. But then I would hear him on the phone and I was like, what, you talking on the phone all, why does everybody else get the best of you?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yes.
God, I've
I
had
would-
that. I've I've had that said to me, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so don't ever fucking talk about, sorry,
No, no,
don't
it's
talk to
fine.
anybody in front of me on the phone ever again. I go, because if I have to listen to
Yeah.
you be so nice and so compassionate
Yeah.
with other people, but you can't be that way with your wife, like, I'm not going to, that's not going to work for me
Yeah.
anymore.
Did
Yeah.
did he go from you guys having beef to going right to the nice conversation? Because I've
No,
done that.
no, no.
Right?
What do you mean?
We're having a heated conversation where I'm probably not getting something, to be honest with you. And then I hop right into a work call. And I'm
Oh,
very
yeah.
nice
Oh,
and
Yes,
oh, yes.
professional and
yes.
Yeah.
I misunderstood
Yes,
your
so did
question.
I.
yeah,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
misunderstood. Yeah, no, we'll have tension and I'll be not happy with something and then he has to
go
go get
beyond.
on a call and he sounds like all great and I'm beyond. I'm just like, are you serious right now? But I understand it's his work, but
Yeah.
still,
Listen,
it's
I have canceled. Like, we'll have dinners with clients and stuff, and if I'm not in a good place with you, I am not a fake. I cannot be
Hmm.
fake. So I will tell him, I know it's last minute, but I'm not going.
but is that new since you've hit 10 years
That's
Yes,
where I'm.
ago?
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
new.
That's new. And I think that's that reclaiming energy. I think it's that we're honoring all those little things in ourself that we neglected.
Yeah,
We're finally honoring. And we're like, we're going to honor this. And you can choose to or not, but we're honoring it.
right.
Some
And it could affect this relationship, might be affected if you choose to gaslight me or belittle what I'm saying. But this matters. And I don't even need you to validate it anymore. I can validate it for myself. But if you dismiss it, we're going to have some
Mhm.
problems. I think that's it.
Something's got to happen here, though, because that's a whole paradigm shift. I feel for Alex because I get it. I
Mhm.
really, I sympathize. We're not alone. When
Yeah.
you look at some of the commentary on some of our social media stuff, especially Facebook, men are at a loss for this in
Yeah.
many ways, right? And we probably don't evolve as quickly, right? We don't mature as quickly when we're kids. Probably don't mature as quickly as adults either. You guys enter this phase, you're reclaiming your energy, you're thinking about stuff 10 years ago, and we're just like everything's cool.
Yeah.
We got a nice house, a nice lifestyle, but something changes and you guys make a change. It's not, I find it fascinating listening to what you're talking about, totally relatable. And I guarantee you people listening are relating to this. And I just wonder what the solution is. Because you could save a marriage if you come to the realization of I need to figure this out type of thing.
Well, I wonder. I don't know if men feel this in general, but I feel like I know you've kind of expressed this before that you're married, you've married me and you're faithful and you're here and you provide for the family. So that is show to I think to men
Should
that's
go a long way.
showing
Yes.
showing their love.
That is their
That's
love language.
that's their love
Yeah.
language where women need more than like we need that obviously, but we need more than that. But then I think men might feel, well, now you're just being spoiled or now you're being high maintenance
Yeah, I think that
or
I can see where they, like, I would hear Alex banter with, different people that he works with and joke around, and then I'm like, I remember saying to him, I want that, Alex.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I go, but I think what
Oh.
happened is that what I think, whether it's on purpose or not, that I am wife and mom, and so, like, sometimes he'll say things to me and I'm looking, I'm like, I'm not stupid, and he's like, why are you getting so sensitive? I go, because sometimes you talk to me as though all I am is a wife and a mom.
yeah,
Like, I worked for, this many years. I am, but by the way, because I haven't been out in the world, maybe I am not as interesting or whatever. But and so, I had this conversation with him yesterday because you were saying, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
yeah,
I was telling him, I said, oh my God, in 6 months, my life is going to be so different.
yeah,
And he says, oh, really? Why? Because Grayson's going to college? I said, no, because I'm going to be working and I'm going to be interacting with a group of all new people. I'm going to be accomplishing things
yeah.
and people are going to respect me and I am going to be successful. And he just looked at me like I had four heads.
I love that you were just manifesting that.
Yeah,
You're just
I
manifesting it.
am.
Big. I love that. I
Yeah, I
love
am.
that.
I mean, that's, and so I think that
But that probably took him back. He's like, whoa, not realizing this is the woman that you fell in love with,
Yeah. I don't
you
know how
know?
he's going to handle it, honestly, because for 20 years, like, and actually, even though I worked for this, like, I was the stay-at-home
Yeah.
mom, I was whatever, but I told him, I said, I lost myself, and it is not a bad thing towards you because I'm asking you to join me.
Right.
And, but that includes, like, I feel like respecting me outside of a mother and a wife role as a
Yes.
woman,
Yes.
and, um, I also need to respect and look at him as more than just a provider.
And that may be the disconnect, right? Is that we all get so wrapped up in raising our kids and all the things that go on with that, that somewhere along the line you lose that initial man woman thing,
Right, the
like the
connection. Yeah.
connection, and not seeing each other as the father or the mother or the husband or the wife, but just as a guy and a
Yeah.
girl,
Yeah.
and I think that's why it's so important, if possible, for couples to try to do things together. But it's hard when you're in the middle of raising kids. It's hard to find that
You
And
fall
time.
into roles.
yeah. And you
Yeah.
do fall into roles. And also,
Yeah.
it's not authentic,
Right.
right? So, like, just recently, since we've decided to give our marriage, we went on a walk. We go to walk the dogs 2 nights a week, and we just talk about stuff
Yeah.
besides the kids.
Mhm.
Now, we're not forcing ourselves to do it. We just are kind of getting to know each other a little, like dating it. And it's a little weird in a way because I'm not used to him being attentive
Right.
and whatever. So it's kind of like we've been in this one role, and not that it's good or bad, but
Right.
like, so now he's like, oh, that looks great, or what did you cook? Because like whatever, and I'm like, I'm not used to him giving me compliments or recognizing, so it's almost kind of like weird.
You're being seen.
Yes, I'm. That's exactly. I mean, that's
You're
exactly.
being seen.
Yeah,
And I think that's what it is that we start to feel invisible.
yeah,
And then when things do change and our husband does do something where you feel seen, you're like, you almost don't trust it.
yeah. It
You're
feels.
like,
Yeah.
I
what,
think
what?
Alex has got me by 6 months, maybe 9 months.
But like the other day, I realized like I was looking back some of the texts, and a lot of times my texts and my interactions with Alex are, "Can you transfer this?
Right.
Can you pay? I
Yeah.
want to pay for this." So then I was like, you know what? He didn't say this to me, but I want to stop looking at him as the money guy,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so because those are the roles that we carved. I go, you're out building $1 million homes, but when you walk in the front door, you're Alex and Dad.
Yes.
But it does go back,
Okay.
like, we
Right.
are reclaiming our energy, but we also have to give the husbands time to kind of catch up with that.
Yes.
And I think that it was a bumpy road, but I think Alex got there and in his own way.
Yeah.
Like, what I felt like is important to do was just to step away and like they say, when you're in the middle, focus on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you do, you will attract what needs to come to you. And it's such a cliche because you're reading this stuff, but like if you really practice it and you just say like, I just want to take care of myself. Nobody's done anything wrong. Nobody has gone outside the marriage. Nobody's done anything wrong. So when I did it, just gave him time. And if I
Yeah.
would have chased him or made him go to therapy or do all this stuff, it would just be pushing him away. So on his own, he just was able to get there.
Yeah.
And, my kids are just, you could just see the tension in the home is just like, it just happened organically.
Yeah.
And I think my kids learned a very valuable lesson. Gavin is like, observes a lot. So, he knew everything that was going on just by observing.
Yeah. But now you guys are actually, it's a living authentically.
Yes.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
makes such a
And
difference.
it's just the very beginning. Like it's just,
Yeah.
but I do feel really hopeful about it. And I feel like when you're going through a midlife crisis, awakening, your marriage, I think it's pretty normal,
Yeah.
right? And you
Yeah.
got to figure out how you want to get through. And if somebody hasn't done like stepped out of the marriage or whatever, I do think that it can be salvaged.
I agree. I mean, I do have my cheating is
That's the deal
that's a
breaker.
deal breaker for me. But I think that if you're talking about just what we're talking about here, I definitely think it's worth putting in the work
Right.
and finding each other again. Because usually what you'll find is you're unstoppable then.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you come out of that and you're like, you're stronger.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah.
you're good for the second half. And it's almost like a new relationship,
It is. It
you
is.
know, and it's
Yeah.
fun and,
You,
you know,
one thing that comes to mind, you were talking about your text, it almost becomes transactional. Because
Yes.
if I look
Yes.
at our text, we'll have that same,
yeah,
have you done this? Have you done that? And it gets very transactional. So but we're stuck in those roles when you're
Yeah.
raising kids.
Yeah.
Somehow, again, you guys, I think, changed first, if
Yeah.
I had to guess.
always.
Yeah, then we have to just catch up.
Well,
yeah,
because listen, our roles are directly tied into our children. So as our children
Yeah.
mature and grow, our role changes.
Yep.
Whereas your role hasn't changed.
Yep.
It may have, you may have switched jobs or whatever, but your role kind of stays the same. So that's why I told Alex, like, oh, my job's ended, and it
yeah,
hasn't really ended. But I'm still always going to be a parent, but that part of
yeah,
like taking care of your
Yeah.
kids. And I go, but your role hasn't changed. And it didn't change when we had the kids,
hmm,
and I
Yeah.
used to, in the beginning, like, when you're like, oh my God, like, how am I going to do this? Like, and it's not like, oh, I do more or whatever. It's not about that. It's just, but I think it's just like honoring when the other person's growth or lack of growing with you, like, and
yeah,
just, but I think that when you gaslight, I think when you don't try to understand, you don't try to meet in the middle or try to talk about it, that's where you set someone on fire, so to speak. But
yeah,
I'm glad that he reacted that way because it did me a favor. And now it kind of comes full circle.
absolutely. And it's real and it's authentic.
Yeah.
Where he's coming from is not forced by you,
Right.
and
Right.
you feel seen.
Yeah.
I do
So
think you hit it though. Your roles have changed because the kids have gotten older. You don't have to be as attentive, although you're still attentive. But our roles are still going on the same path. We're out there working
yeah,
Hmm.
and doing
Mowing the
providing type
lawn
of
on
thing.
Sunday,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, their love language many times is providing, but
Yeah,
and
how's the lawn look?
yeah, which is enough when we're in the thick of raising children. It's when we focus on ourselves again, we realize we want more from them.
Right.
Yeah, we want to
Right.
be seen.
And it's really more the emotional.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not like I want you to buy me more handbags or take me on more
Right.
vacations.
Yeah.
You're starting to realize, hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you, or let's go to the movies.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I'm busy working,
Yeah.
because So I realize, like, coming on the other side of it, yes, they have to have time to transition to it. It's not going to be
Absolutely.
on our timeline.
I'm gonna get killed by anybody watching this. Any man, they're like, dude, you folded. I'm gonna get eviscerated.
So probably part of where you see yourself in 5 years is your marriage is even stronger.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I feel like where I see myself in 5 years is, I think, we're just being a productive, fulfilled woman,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
I think that the key is knowing that you're still alive, that you still can accomplish things. That, I mean, I don't know if you watched the Martha Stewart documentary.
I'm going
Oh,
to.
well, like,
Yeah.
that this is like, your chapters don't end, at
Mhm.
50. There's a whole world out there, and I don't really know specifically even what kind of job I'm going to end up doing, but I know it's going to be something.
Yeah.
And I'm open to anything, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. Like, I feel like I'm 40.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm 35, 40.
Yeah.
I still have, a zest for life. I still, and so I don't know. I think this is who we're going to be. This
Yeah.
is, like you said, redefining what aging looks like.
Yeah. And I think hopefully the younger generations will see, because Gen X is also notorious for not giving a shit what anyone thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think the younger generations sometimes care too much to a fault. If you let go of some of whatever caring about what everyone thinks, it does give you some freedom and some liberation. And I think that also, that characteristic of our generation really helps us as we pioneer through and redefine, because we don't care. Like, we don't care. Like, we're going to wear what we want. We're going to wear our hair the way we want. We're going to, whatever we need to do to make ourselves feel good we don't care about like social standards or expectations. At least Gen X women, I think, generally are, I wore my Uggs the other day, and, I'm sure that there's some 75-year-old woman that thought I'm too old to wear them. I don't care.
Right. Like, I honestly did not come into that until later. Like, and I think it's because I grew up moving around my whole life.
Mm.
So I was always a chameleon, assimilating to whatever my environment was. And I really remember discovering who I was when I had kids. Because when I
Mm.
had kids is when I
Hmm.
started not giving a shit about what people thought. Because now I'm like focused on raising this life. But I did when I was younger. I don't think I fell into that because I always had to reinvent myself. And
Yeah.
I didn't have to do that. My brother, my sister didn't do that. But that's what made me thrive, was put myself in environments and rise to whatever, like, where I wanted to be, fit in,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I really didn't know who I was until I had kids.
That makes sense. So even through working.
Well, working, I mean, that was my one solid thing,
Mm-hmm.
that I had. But I did, like I said, have a lot of imposter syndrome. But I also lived a little bit of a double life too, because I was in corporate America Monday through Friday, and then I
Mm-hmm.
was like partying on South Beach, on the weekends,
Mm-hmm.
because I was living different lifestyles and whatever. So the good and bad is that I'm very adaptable, but it does took me a long time to find my true authentic self.
And when you became a mother, that imposter syndrome gone
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you were
You're in survival
yeah,
mode.
yeah, well, yeah,
Yeah,
and I think when typically when you have children, all whatever, I know for myself, whatever issues you have kind of heal
yeah.
as soon as they hand you that baby because your purpose is clear.
Yeah, your purpose changes, and now you're,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's just kind of it settles some things, I think. So when do you get this certificate? In fact, you said next month.
So February 15th, I'm taking the exam. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a retired teacher, and I was telling her, like, it's so difficult. I can't do the flashcards. I'm having a hard time memorizing. I'm taking online classes. And she was saying when she had kids who had ADHD in her classrooms, that they would like bounce on balls. They would do other
Mhm.
activities so to keep them distracted, but allow them. So I've been working on a cricket, some projects for college stuff that I'm making, and I've been listening to it, and I aced all three of the tests. So I just found this thing where I'm listening and I'm watching, but I'm doing something with my hands. So it
Interesting.
helps me
Wow.
listen
Okay.
and retain the information more. So after each module, there's like a study exam. I mean, not a study exam, like a exam, a little thing quiz on what you just learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I was getting 60s because
Mm.
I was sitting there reading textbook. And the
Mm.
last three I took, I
It's
got
hard
eight.
to go back, right?
Yes,
What'd you
it's
get on the last three?
88.
Nice.
All three of them got 88.
Nice.
That's
That's
awesome.
an angel number, by the way.
Oh,
But
okay.
but
That's
yeah, so
wonderful.
it was just finding that little distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I was still in front of the screen, but I was doing my cricket. And so yeah, February 15th, and then that'll be the first step, in
Yeah, in that journey.
yeah.
What is the certificate?
It's called, so it's Jim Sherm, which is the greater, wait, it's SHRM. So it's Society for Human Resources Management,
Okay.
and it's a national affiliation. And you take this exam, and it just kind of like a CPA exam or a real estate exam. It covers everything relevant and current in HR. And when I take that and people see that I have that, they'll know that even though haven't worked in 7 years, I'm up to date with
Yeah.
everything kind of going
Yeah.
on. And also that it will not like substitute, like I have 25 years experience. The fact that that this
Yeah.
certificate is much more valuable than a degree that I got 25 years ago,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're
So
going to go back, and I wonder if by the time you get back in, the DEI stuff will have run its course, because that's been a thing,
yes,
right, for the
yes.
last
Mm.
5 to 7 years.
And listen,
And we're
by the
coming
way, I
out
have
of that.
zero experience. That's one area that I didn't do well in within this, because DEI really is for the major
Yeah.
corporations,
Mm-hmm.
And I did work for a really big corporation, but I was not in corporate headquarters. The headquarters were in Ohio, in Cincinnati. So everything trickled down to me. I wasn't part of um, the process of getting that. So I really don't I have very limited exposure. I have zero exposure to that.
Yeah. So
Um,
that'll be if it's
yeah.
still even going on, that'll be new. I don't
Yeah.
know if it will
Well,
still
I don't
be.
know if they're going to be able to phase it out that quickly. And I think that a lot of the bigger companies will probably still keep some,
Some
yes,
of it.
because right now, what I'm learning in this HR stuff is that a lot of things are really directed to global.
Mm.
global industries, global
Mhm.
business. Um, and I think that they have to keep some sort of part of that going, the DEI for
Yeah.
multicultural. I think maybe some of the other stuff might kind of, but really, if you are a big corporation, you have to be able to do business in different countries
Yeah.
and show that you are equitable and so, but when you're working for a smaller organization that's just like in Boca,
Yeah.
that's not going to be something that's
Yeah.
really relevant,
That
Yeah.
makes
as
sense.
relevant.
That
Yeah.
makes sense. So the certificate, does it how does it kind of fulfill that you didn't go to college?
Hmm.
Is it kind of like coming full circle
Yes.
with all this experience you've had, all this life experience, all this work experience? What does that represent? And then you are having your midlife awakening and everything you've gone through. Um, this certificate probably represents way more than anything you could have gotten back when you were 22.
Yes, it does. It's like it's my college degree at,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's the one thing that I've walked through life being ashamed of, and that was like the root of a lot of my insecurities because I would feel like I wasn't good enough, even though I would present, whenever it was a whole internal thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, like when I said it out loud, it freed me. When I told my son, I told him this whole speech because he was like, I need to know where you went to college and what year you graduated. And I was like, oh, he goes, okay, so where is that? That was his response. And then I said, well, it's in Niceville, Florida, and then Pensacola, Florida. And he's like, by the way, Alex doesn't have a college degree either. Alex went straight to working with
Yeah.
his dad. So he calls us back. He goes, my chances of getting into FSU are just got higher because I'll be first generation.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
wow.
So I just like, I really appreciate you looking at it that way because like
Yeah.
you freed me,
Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
That's precious. That's
Yeah.
You
precious. I
know,
love that.
I'm just thinking of I work with at least 4 or 5 guys that I can think of, extremely, extremely bright and capable. None of them have degrees or certificates of like computing stuff. And these guys are geniuses. They program, they automate, they do a ton of stuff. So it's interesting
Yeah.
that, even like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, none of these guys
Yeah.
finished college. So
What your industry that you're in kind of is
an exception probably.
it's an exception,
Yeah.
and it's also like a lot because these people you don't fit in, like you when they talk about the academic environment,
Mm-hmm.
there's this whole thing where the A students are working for the C students and the B students because you when you're creative and you're especially
Yeah.
when it comes to information technology, computer science, like most of us can't even understand it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it's led the way to a lot of these companies looking at revamping their job
Yeah.
descriptions, Google and such, and that's your industry
Yeah.
that has led, like, spearheaded
Yeah,
that.
the last few people I've hired, I don't look at college degree or certifications.
That is so
And quite
interesting.
frankly, if someone has a certification, I question it
Hmm.
because they maybe aren't. We need people that are hackers, kind of,
Yeah.
figure stuff out, create, to your point, create, make stuff
Well, and
work.
in your industry, by the time you have a certification, it's already obsolete,
Yeah,
right? Because
very true.
the
Yeah,
technology
moves
changes.
very
Yeah,
fast.
yeah.
You touched on that earlier in the podcast that there is a shift. And that they are companies aren't always looking for the college degree anymore. So there
Hmm.
is which I think is a positive thing because a lot of these kids are coming out of school hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for what? So if there is a shift, I think it actually helps a lot of kids get ahead
Hmm. Or
and
have a
you know
chance.
or a chance without crippling debt.
Yeah, like right now with social media, right? Who are you hiring to do your social media management? You're
Hmm.
hiring a young kid who doesn't have a college degree.
Yeah.
They understand this, they know the nuances, and they're in high demand. Have you ever looked to see how much they charge? I mean, it's pretty, like you
Yeah,
buy a package and you get like this package of X amount of this, X amount of that, and it's like 3 grand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and by the way, you can't teach that in the class. They don't
No.
teach classes of that. So
No.
they there's a little niche right there just to
Yeah.
show you, and every single organization relies on social media.
Yep,
yeah,
100%, 100%. It's actually Kaya does that at her job in her she's marketing and she does that as
Oh
part of her
yeah,
job.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's vital. So, All right. So we're going to see you in 5 years in your new career.
Yes.
And you and Alex will be doing your walks.
Yes. Yes.
And who knows where the boys will
I
be.
know. I know.
But we'd love to have you back on and
Well,
do a follow up.
oh my gosh, thank you.
You know?
First of all, I admire you guys. I wanted to say that I've been watching all your podcasts even before, like, it just like popped up. I remember I texted you one day and I
Yeah,
said,
you
okay.
did.
And I just think it's a really this is a like our generation, like talking about the things that you're talking about that are real that people aren't talking about, marriage, menopause, all these things. So I was beyond flattered that you invited me and I really enjoyed it and I really admire you guys.
I'm really
Thank
glad you
you.
came. I thought this was great.
Thank you.
You're a part of our midlife
I
awakening.
know.
You
Well, that's what
know?
it's all about. We're trying to share, right?
Yes,
And be
yes.
supportive. Yeah.
We know a good
Yeah.
walking loop too that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
around
we
here.
do. We walked by here last night, by the way.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We walk really close to your house.
It's
Like
a
we
nice
cross.
4-mile loop you can do here.
Yeah,
really?
yeah. So yeah, if anyone's caught on, we also are neighbors. We live
Yeah.
in similar, close neighborhoods.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
But again, thank you for coming on. We
Thank you
really
for
appreciate
having
and for
me.
sharing so authentically your story and your outlook and your hope for your future. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners and with us,
Oh,
because
you're welcome.
I know there's a lot of people that can relate to a lot of what you said. So thank
I
you.
hope so.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you. Thank
Definitely.
you so much.
And we'll see everybody next time. We welcome any questions, comments, and thank you so much for listening. Bye.